Hey, hey, what's really going on? Bitcoin, cryptocurrency today. Going to be taking a look at XRP against USDT. Going to be assessing some of these key technical aspects of price action moving forward. Going to be looking at some of the pivotal areas of support and resistance I believe we're going to be interacting with in the very near future here. Let me know in the comments down below. Do you trade? Do you hold? Or do you let the price action unfold? Are you diamond hands through all this crazy accumulation and break downward? Are you bullish? Are you bearish? Let me know your thoughts on price action kind of moving forward. Do you think we're headed down to some lower levels that we came for? Perhaps we're going to get trapped into these kind of lower phases of accumulation between 50 cents and 60 cents? Or are you bullish? Are we headed back up past $1 to the multi-dollar range and we're heading back up to the highs that we kind of just came from? Let me know your thoughts on price action in the comments. Now, jumping right into it to kind of recap price action in the kind of last, sort of to like November of 2020. We've had these crazy swings, like upward into a phase of accumulation, a break downward into another phase of accumulation, and then a break upward again into like a kind of mid phase of accumulation that, took kind of a few weeks to a couple months before we broke significant resistance found at like 62 cents. There also seems to be another kind of zone of resistance that we've interacted with between 72 cents and 79 cents. We had the projection off of that kind of like pink range here. I had on the 1st of February, and then at the kind of swing high, the 24th of November. So we've had some kind of significant resistance off of this level. We now appear to be returning to it in the future here in the most recent price action, and we seem to be looking for it as support. I personally think, in my opinion, we're going to make our way to at least that 72-cent level, and perhaps even all the way down to my ascending trend line to find support. I believe even if over the next kind of like 4 or 5 days, if we do end up kind of coming down there, that would still be a higher low relative to the wick on the 23rd of May. So ultimately, price action is still bullish long term, in my opinion. We've had a very bullish kind of year so far, so some sell-off, some sideways, I believe, is necessary. Interaction and support along my ascending trend line here will, signify perhaps long-term bullish strength as well. Like I said, I do suspect the interaction with the bottom of my kind of like pink zone here. I mean, a more bullish bounce target would be 79 cents, in my opinion. We could be more short-term bullish if that does become support. Like I said, I do suspect interaction to make its way down to 72 cents, and we could very well become bearish enough to interact with that ascending trend line. My last kind of bullish bear target is this 62-cent significant, sort of like what was significant resistance, which I believe is going to be our kind of last level of support before we can perhaps suspect some midterm kind of like downside or some more bearish price action. I believe in the short term, this accumulation phase is going to have to play out over the next kind of couple of weeks, and I do suspect some some lower price levels to kind of present themselves in the kind of next kind of few days here. Now, when we consider EngineeringRobo, along with the Fibba Zucchini, Fibba Illuminati lines of sacred symmetry and geometry, we can see a new perspective come into play when we consider, we have interaction with the FOMO zone all the way up there at levels kind of between like $1.53 and $1.83 was up in that FOMO zone. Big rejection sent us plummeting down to that 0.5 Fibonacci line at $1.03. We ended up finding support, bounced off it, and then consolidated in a downward manner along this sort of descending trend line that turned into be what appeared to be kind of like a symmetrical-esque kind of triangle pattern. And we found support at a higher low at that 0.618 level. Price action was very bullish, and we were looking to break upward, but momentum changed very abruptly, and a fake out occurred, I believe, on the 18th of May, and we ended up breaking all the way back down, retesting off of that 0.618 after kind of bouncing off that 0.5. The 0.618 line at $1.25, I believe, was a kind of significant kind of point of resistance that confirmed kind of this break downward into our kind of like lower phase here between the 0.382 level at 81 cents and the 0.5 line at $1.03. And so that does seem to be significant resistance moving forward. I do suspect that once price action gets up to it, you're going to have to, build up some momentum or support and resistance, step our way through the 0.5 line at $1.03. We have $1.06 and $1.14 as potential significant resistance moving forward. The 0.382 line at 81 cents is going to be a very short-term bullish support level that if we can bounce off of and hold, then we can be kind of more short-term bullish. Ultimately, like I've been saying, I do suspect perhaps a break of that 0.382 line in interaction with my 72-cent level, which does happen to be right near that 200 daily moving average. And so, as long as price action is above that, and even with this kind of retest of the 200 daily and the 23rd of May, the longer we interact above that 200 daily moving average, and even if we come down to it, the longer that we interact kind of with it as support, the more long-term bullish we can be, in my opinion. Ultimately, price action does looks quite short-term bearish. We're going to see some lower levels present themselves, I do suspect. But although, like I said, I do believe the trend is still intact in the long term. I believe support along my ascending trend line will be a good suggestion that the trend is still intact. Now, when we consider XRP against BTC, we can see a new perspective come into play. When we, consider these kind of significant ranges here, we had that bit of resistance between 34.58 Satoshi and 37.88 Satoshi, sending us all the way back down to this kind of like range that we bounced in between since like kind of 13th of April to the kind of 15th of May before we interacted with that upper level there. I do think the 28.93 Satoshi level and the 2278 Satoshi level are going to be significant support and resistance moving forward. We've had plenty of bounces kind of back and forth between these ranges. I suspect interaction with that 2274 Satoshi is quite imminent, it would appear. Support found along that level would be a rather bullish higher low relative to the swing lows in kind of like the 23rd of May and the 23rd of April. Against the price of Bitcoin, we are still looking slightly more bullish, in my opinion. A more bearish target is going to be 1533 Satoshi if we fail to hold 2263, in my opinion. As you suggested, the kind of like 2884 level has been kind of very significant resistance moving forward, and I believe we're going to have to build up momentum and kind of support and resistance, step our way up through it, and then come back down to it as support once we break that 2895 kind of resistance there. When we consider EngineeringRobo, along with the Fibba Illuminati, Lamborghini, Zucchini lines of geometry, we can see new perspective come into play here. We have price action falling below that 0.5 Fibonacci line. Looking to interact with my 2268 Satoshi level. The 0.5 Fib line is going to be 2441 Satoshi. A potential, we could have a potential bounce off of that Satoshi level before making our way through 2268. I do believe we could be very much bearish enough to come all the way down to that 0.618 line. We could still be long-term bullish even if price action is down here. The 0.618 line is at 2015 Satoshi, just above that 200 daily moving average. And so as long as we're above that 200 daily moving average, I believe the trend is still bullish long-term. Especially against the price of Bitcoin, we could see prices perhaps hold or stay sideways over some volatile Bitcoin price fluctuations. Ultimately, XRP is looking bullish long term as we're above that 200 daily moving average. But with that sell for and hell on the on XRP's price against Bitcoin chart, I could suspect some continued kind of like downside in the short term, and these lower levels I believe are going to present themselves very soon. 0.382 Fibonacci line correlating with my 2892 Satoshi level. That's going to be very significant resistance moving forward. And the 0.236 line correlating with the bottom of my 3456 zone there. The 0.236 Fib level is 3405 Satoshi. We do have some rather significant kind of resistance kind of ahead of us once we do start coming back up there. Price action does seem to be making its way down to support, and I do suspect support will be found hopefully that 0.618 level at 2015 Satoshi will be a more bullish target, but ultimately we could be bearish enough to interact with that 200 daily moving average. And I do suspect that we will make our way through my 2269 Satoshi level there. If we hold there, if we hold that 2269 Satoshi level, we can be more short-term bullish in my opinion, and I could suspect some some of these upper levels to present themselves, perhaps some more interaction with that 0.382 line. But ultimately, now that we're kind of closing below that 0.5, I believe we're going to fly through my 2269 and we're going to interact with that 0.618. When we consider Bitcoin against USDT, we can see a new perspective come into play. When we consider how this sell-off has been unfolding, very ridiculous sell pressure, lower highs. This daily candle has closed as a lower high relative to the kind of swing highs at the 3rd of June, and then the kind of like 26th of May. We've been seeing these kind of like lower highs but higher lows, and so I do suspect this phase of accumulation to kind of play out over the coming weeks. I suspect price action is looking to make its way back down to the 34K level, even after bouncing off of 32K. We wicked all the way down to like into the 31,000 kind of range there. 32K I believe is going to be significant support moving forward. I believe some daily candles are going to have to come down to it and start closing above it before we can confirm it as a bottom. The 0.5 Fibonacci line at 34,300 is going to be a more bullish kind of like support level that we could bounce off of, and in this FUD-filled time for crypto. Lots can go on in this kind of crazy section here. I've been suggesting for the past kind of like few weeks that we're going to have these multi-$1,000 pumps up and down, and so a bounce off of that 0.5 Fibonacci line at 34,300 could send us all the way up to the 0.618 line at 41,500, just below that 200 daily moving average. But even if price action were to find its way back up to that level, it could be significant enough resistance to send us all the way back down to where we came from. So lots going on in the market right now. We have that 200 daily moving average as a very bearish technical sell suggestion, sell indicator. There's going to be plenty of traders seeing that as as quite the bearish sign. I believe the fundamentals of Bitcoin are going to hold us through this technical sell pressure. The fundamentals for Bitcoin are still overly abundant, and there's still very high buy pressure at these levels. And so I believe the uptrend is still quite intact in the long term, but ultimately perhaps some short-term downside and bearish accumulation is necessary for the uptrend to continue, as we are up still hundreds of percentages since this time last year. Super sell for in play until EngineeringRobo becomes bullish. We can be quite short-term bearish, short-term sideways. Long-term, I'm still bullish. Thank you for hearing my analysis. Thank you for tuning in. Try EngineeringRobo free with a link in the description. Subscribe here on YouTube. Check out all the other social media down below. Let me know in the comments down below. Are you bullish? Are you bearish? Do you trade? Do you hold? What are you doing with your bag if you have one? And tune in for the next one.